The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We have a great podcast today, and it is Lovin' Baseball when we were 12 and innocent. Imagine that, a long time ago for a lot of us. But Craig, my guest today is Craig Allen and Newton. What's the significance behind Newton as a surname? Craig Allen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Where are you from, Craig?
I'm from San Jose, California.
We're in the same time zone, as a matter of fact. I'm from Alameda, California. And I wonder if when you grew up, you were a Giant fan or an A's fan?
I was a Giants fan. My dad was a Yankee fan. And when he was finished his accounting courses and became a CPA, he had three jobs to apply for. One was with the FBI. The second was with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the third was with a small company out of Sunnyvale, California, C.G. Eulenberg, which he chose. Thank goodness. Otherwise, I've been raised a Dodger fan. I shudder to think about that.
All right.
And because he was a Yankees fan, he would go to the A's games, and because he loved me, he'd go to the Giants games and take me to the Giants games.
Wow, quite a dad, an eclectic baseball history.
Yeah.
Did he grow up in New York to become a Yankee fan?
He grew up in Providence, Rhode Island.
Oh, okay. Lenny Wilkins country, but that's another sport and another story. Which team did you like from the start? The Giants, I'm assuming.
The Giants.
Okay, put yourself at age 12. What was going on at age 12 with the Giants and you? And I use age 12 because as a kid, when your passion intersects with your intellectuality, it's the best years of fandom. And for me, it was age 12, and for a lot of my guests, it was age 12. Put yourself back at age 12.
That's easy. I was following Dave Kingman with the Giants.
Right.
And in the sixth grade, I was very lucky. I had a teacher, Mrs. Bakich, who was a big Giants fan, and she would go to spring training every single year and then come back with souvenirs for the class.
Oh,
and,
wow.
We would talk baseball. But, yeah, I'm talking I'm collecting Topps baseball cards and organizing my teams and just following the Giants.
Okay, you mentioned Dave Kingman. I'm going to ask you about the year of the Fox, 1971. What does that mean to you?
That'd be Charlie Fox.
Right. And
go ahead.
It was Kingman's rookie year, and it was a very, very exciting year for me. I was an original New York Giant fan, came out here in the Air Force, and sure enough got to follow my Giants along with my new love, the New York Mets. But 1971 was, I mentioned I'm living in Alameda and have been for the last 35 years or so. And a fellow Alamedan played shortstop as a rookie for that team, and it was Chris Spire. So, it was an unbelievable season because the double play combination was new. Tito Fuentes was at second, And you mentioned Kingman. He had awesome power and was a terrific athlete, the fastest guy from first to third that I ever saw. So when we think of Dave Kingman, later a Met, we think power only, but he was a terrific athlete, and in college he was a pitcher. I can't remember, was it Southern Cal? I don't remember where he went to college, but he was an All-American pitcher as well. What about the Giants did you first get attracted to?
Oh, that would be Mr. Mays.
Okay. All right. What do you remember most about Willie?
His speed. Oh, my gosh, was he fast. And the sound of the ball at Candlestick Park coming off his bat during batting practice.
Mm-hmm.
No other player, not Bobby Bonds, not Ken Harrelson, not even Kingman. The sound of that ball coming off of Willie Mays' bat, his swing, was just something I'll never forget.
Okay. What in baseball, what in your fandom helped you in your career as a human being? What can you associate with baseball and the working life?
I've never been asked that. I've been asked a lot of questions, but I've never been asked that one. Baseball and life. Wow. Well, if it wasn't for baseball, I wouldn't have become a writer, and so that's number one. So I guess it helped with people skills, because you have to be able to, relate to one-on-one and connect almost immediately with the subject you're writing about. So I guess it fueled my love of writing, which fueled my love of people and interacting with people. Yeah.
You're also a podcaster, so I'm sure those skills transcend.
I'm a reluctant podcaster. Tony Gladstone, who is my co-host on the winter meetings, talked me into coming on and becoming a podcaster. I'm 63 years old. The last thing I thought I'd be doing would be doing a podcast, but here I am doing it, and I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it, and it's funny. My kids think I'm cool again. I used to be a firefighter, EMT. They didn't think I was that cool with that, but because I'm on a podcast, they think it's pretty cool. So, but yeah. I think Tony Gladstone for convincing me to come on and be his co-host, and having a blast doing it. It's fun sharing old stories and just talking baseball and talking the love of the game and where it's going, where it's been, and getting a chance to meet people like you.
Wow, that's a compliment to me, because you do great work. Tell me a story about a ball player, just off the top of your head. How about we start with Joe Garagiola?
Oh my God! Oh, I miss him so much.
You were his friend.
Yes.
How did you become friends with Joe Garagiola?
A mutual
spiker of Jackie Robinson, but that's another story.
A mutual love of baseball cards. He found out I was a writer for Baseball Card Magazine. He wanted to know more about me than I wanted to know more about him, and we talked about our collections and that he still collected, and that he referred to them as bubblegum cards. So the whole time that we were together, every time I saw him, he'd go, "Hey, Craig, how's your bubblegum card collection going? Who are you writing about now?" And just a sweet man who loved baseball, and had a great sense of humor about himself, and he revered his friendship with his childhood friend Yogi Berra.
Right. They both grew up on the Hill in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yep.
He was his neighbor, as a matter of fact. They played ball together.
Yep, they lived across the street from each other.
Well, I don't know if you know this about me, Craig, because you mentioned baseball cards. I was the Topps baseball card rep on the West Coast in the 80s and 90s. And I would go to the California League and the Northwest League. Sometimes I even covered the Midwest League. And my job was to sign all the players who weren't obligated yet to Topps. And I have some wonderful stories. I signed Robbie Thompson and Will Clark with the Giants, a whole bunch of guys over the years. So I was touched by your fanaticism for baseball cards. That's what impressed me most. I'm a little older than you, but we're both Walter Middies in a sense.
Yes.
And to do what we do, to have this stuff in our brains, it takes a special kind of person, and I'm glad you're that, because it makes for a much more interesting world if you could think about your memories. And what's your partner in you mentioned Mr. Gladstone.
Yes.
He does podcasting with you.
Yes.
How does he complement your podcast and vice versa?
Well, first of all, he's the brains and genius behind the podcast. I'm not technically savvy like he is. So he's the producer, he's the director, he's the writer. Basically, my job is I come on and I'll tell stories, or I'll add content to whatever the subject is. We've been very fortunate also to bring on board a former Yankee pitcher, Stephen Weaver, who gives keen insight as a former professional ball player as to what's going on in baseball today. But Tony is the genius behind the podcast. I just come on and I talk.
His name is very familiar to me. Doug Gladstone did some podcasting on my network. He wrote one of the most interesting books, and I'm wondering if he's related to your partner.
I don't know. I'm sure when he hears this podcast, he'll probably reach out to you and let you know.
All right. One way or the other, Doug wrote a book about a bitter cup of coffee. It was entitled, or something along those lines. And it was about players who played in the major leagues, often made a contribution, and weren't recognized by the pensioning by the unions. And there were a number of them, and it very frustrating that baseball and the unions haven't reached out to these players. Some of them, most of them at this point, are incredibly in need of, not all, but a lot of them are in need of assistance. And baseball and like I say, and the unions have let these players down. So that's my Doug Gladstone story, and I wonder if there's any connection. That's an unusual name. Tell me about your career as a firefighter a little bit.
I was a volunteer firefighter in Santa Cruz, San Mateo County, and a full-time EMT for Santa Clara County, and loved it. I had that for almost 10 years. Then a drunk driver hit me and ended that career. So,
oh, wow.
It was short lived. It was a wonderful career. I loved it though. Loved every minute of it.
Okay, have you recovered from the injuries?
Oh,
or?
yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I just wasn't. There's particular not exercises, but physical abilities you must be able to have to pass for county certification. And after my injuries, I was not able to pass those certifications anymore.
That's too bad. I hope you were pensioned off, and we were talking about pensions before. I hope they took good care of you.
No pension. Our union was not in force back then. We didn't have one, so
okay.
No pension, but I'm all right. I'm making out fine.
Good.
It was a wonderful career. Miss it every day. Salute out there to all the first responders that do this job. It's difficult, but it's very rewarding. And so it was a good memory, good career.
Good. What about Dave Kingman do you remember most? Anything in particular, besides the instance with the rat and the woman in the press box?
Yeah. I was there that day in the press box when that happened.
Wow.
And so I won't forget that. But yeah, as far as Dave Kingman, he just the power that he possessed. I mean, just a very strong player. Kind of quiet, not really outspoken when he was playing with the Giants. But just a great player. I want to touch back on Joe Garagiola real quick on one thing.
Please.
He sent me a letter, a handwritten letter. He wrote it on a Southwest Airlines flight, talking about when he found out he was going into the Hall of Fame, and he's joining his longtime friend Yogi Berra, and how humble he felt, and it's a real treasured letter that I have from him. This man was great for baseball as an ambassador, but he also was great for getting the word out about cancer. Long before there was a Stand Up to Cancer program that's out there with all the celebrities, Joe Garagiola and Joe Torre, among others.
I don't know if you remember Bill Tuttle, the Kansas City A's outfielder. He came down with mouth cancer, and it was basically from chewing tobacco.
Yep.
And he lost a part of his jaw. I don't know if it led to his death or if
it was awful.
It was absolutely awful. But like any other tragedy, if it calls attention to something that can save other people's lives,
yep.
It's a wonderful thing. And Joe Garagiola, like I said, he was a Yankee announcer when I was a kid growing up for a while in the 60s, along with Phil Rizzuto and Red Barber, who Red Barber really didn't get along with Joe Garagiola, according to his writings. But that's another story. Joe Garagiola was jealous of ball players who assumed the position of announcers because of their career. Some were really terrific. I mentioned Rizzuto. He was respected by Red Barber. But Joe Garagiola and him didn't get along. Let's put it that way.
I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah. In what capacity did you sit in the press box that day?
For the rat story, or
the rat story. Why were you in the press box?
Oh, well, I had a credential.
Who were you writing for?
Baseball Card Magazine.
Oh, okay. And they gave you a credential.
I had season credentials for the A's and the Giants.
So you must know some stories about Cy Berger. Cy Berger invented Topps baseball cards.
Oh. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't have much information on Cy Berger. It's funny because you'd think with all my living in history that I would know that, but you know what? Now you've got me interested in researching Cy Berger. I know about the history of the. You mentioned that you signed a number of players to Topps contract. I'm familiar with the contract dispute from was it 68 or 69, where Topps had to reuse the photos on the cards for 68 because there were players that were refusing to sign for a new contract. Well,
that was before my time.
Okay.
But,
okay.
I'll take your word for it. And Cy Berger kept it going. And Cy Berger lived through the Maury Wills incident. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am not.
But Maury Wills, when he was in the minors, wasn't signed to a Topps contract like many prospects were. And when he reached the majors, he held out, and Topps couldn't use his picture for a long time. So Cy Berger, who ended up being my boss, changed the philosophy of Topps. His idea was that if that could happen with Maury Wills, he didn't want it ever happening again. So what he would do was sign every player in the minors to contracts that would obligate Topps to use their picture on a baseball card, and in return for a signing bonus of $5. They called it stake money. And when they reached the majors, they get paid and big bucks that's especially at that time, for permission to have their photo and likeness on a baseball card. And when I read that in a book called Flipping Cards, Baseball, Flipping, whatever it was a book that Cy Berger did the forward in. And he explained that they no longer have scouts signing players based on subjective opinion of whether they're going to advance and make it to the big leagues. They'd have public relations guys and baseball fanatics like myself go to these different teams and sign every player to a contract. And you mentioned the Giants, and I mentioned that I had signed Robbie Thompson. I want to tell you a quick story about signing Robbie Thompson, and it was in your hometown it was in Fresno, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
Right. Bill Thompson was the general manager, an old Giant announcer from way back, and I got to meet through Wendell Kim when I covered the team for Topps. Got to meet Robbie Thompson. He was the guy I had to sign that day, and I said, Robbie, I'm Ralph Tycho with Topps, and I have a contract for you that obligates you to us and them to you, Topps to you. they were going to pay you big bucks when and if you make the major leagues. And Robbie, I've been saying the same speech for like 5-6 years at that time. Robbie was just appalled at that. When and if I make the major leagues, says Thompson, who was the most incredible overachiever going. He's a 5'9", wiry guy. I had no reason to believe I'd get the response that I did, but it cemented in my life, in my mind, that it isn't just the athletic ability. It's what you think of yourself and how you think that you're going to make it. Think you are. And he signed it, but he looked at me and he said, "Don't ever forget, I'll be there." And by the end, I hung with that team all day. By the end of the day, he and I became friends, and I'm glad I did. He's one of the most incredible humans ever. I'll tell the quick story about Robbie Thompson's brother or sister, or both died in an accident, left 3 kids behind, and Robbie and his wife adopted those kids and made them part of the family. And that's what I remember about Robbie Thompson's life and mindset. And since you mentioned the Giants, and we're talking about my thrills in as the Topps rep, that's one of them.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So we exchanged good stories. How about that? What's your biggest thrill? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No. Was Wendell managing the AAA Giants in Fresno at the time?
Actually, it was the A Giants, and he was the manager of. Later came up under Frank Robinson.
Yeah, stayed Roger Craig. Yep.
Right. Yes, Roger Craig. Hum baby.
Yep. I miss Roger.
I'm sure you do. That was an inspirational human, and like I said, I was a New York Giant fan. He was Roger the Dodger back in those days.
Yes, he was.
And went on. One of the greatest things he did, he coached the '68 Detroit Tigers, pitching coach for them, and led them to a pennant. And that's how his reputation for coaching and managing came to be. Great stories. And Wendell was the most entertaining, lovable fellow. He was an amateur magician, and we're talking about Wendell Kim, and he sticks in my mind. He was later the third, like we talked about, the third base coach for Frank, who was legendary. Frank Robinson, first black to manage in the majors, and part of that great song, "One Robbie Coming In, One Going Out." Anyway. Tell me your biggest thrill in podcasting, what you enjoyed, this notwithstanding.
Oh my gosh, we're still so new. I mean, we have maybe I think 17 shows in our belt, so we're still so new. What I'm thrilled about is that podcasting is going to give us a platform for people to come on for causes that that benefit baseball and benefit, players that may have suffered injuries or players that, want to discuss mental health issues or whatever, So we just give them a platform to come on and talk about that. My greatest thrill for podcasting is that I get to do it. I mean, I think it's so funny that there's people out there that are interested in what I have to say. It just kind of cracks me up because I just love baseball and I love talking about it. But I never played the game, professionally. But I was blessed, for a number of years to write about it and to write about some very interesting, players and spent 10 years watching, baseball cards come to life as I'm sitting there talking to Nolan Ryan or Pete Rose or, oh my gosh, so many players. Mark McGuire, I remember he had just purchased a home in Black Hawk, you know where that's at, and he was putting in a pool.
In Danville.
And he had to go, yeah. He put a pool in, and he said he had to go out there every single morning, early in the morning, and hose and run a hose across the gunite so it didn't set up too hard too soon to keep that nice and moist. So you got Mark McGuire, all-star player, mentioning he's in his bathrobe out there in his backyard watering his empty pool, and just great stories. The time I met Joe DiMaggio at before an Oakland A's game, I did not intend to meet Joe DiMaggio, but my grandfather's childhood friend was Frank Crissetti.
Wow, from Stockton, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, Stockton, yes. And so my grandfather lived in Stockton. My dad grew up in Stockton, but then went after the Navy, went and settled in Providence. So I would see Frank Crissetti as a kid growing up. But as a kid, I didn't really pay too much attention to who he was. I'd be more interested if he'd been Adam West from Batman. I'd been really thrilled if he'd been the TV character, from Batman. But as I grew up and got older, I really appreciated Frank Crissetti. And as a kid, I got to hold one of Babe Ruth's bats because Frank had been a roommate of Babe Ruth on the road, and he had a number of Babe Ruth's bats and a number of baseball memorabilia. I remember as a little kid trying to pick the bat up, and no chance whatsoever. It was just too heavy. But as I got older, he always called me kid. So I'm now 28. I am working as a writer, and he was working as a part-time scout for major leagues at the time. I'd see him and Charlie Silvera, who was Yogi Berra's backup catcher with the Yankees. Started with the Seals in his career. I'd see them, quite often together in the press room, having meals before games at the Coliseum. And I mentioned to Frank that I'd picked up a bunch of Hall of Fame plaques, postcard plaques, and that one day I hope to get them signed, and stuff. And he said, "Well, let me see them." So I showed him, and I showed him Joe DiMaggio's. And he goes, "Huh, you need this one signed, kid." And I go, "Yeah, someday when I meet him, like that, So weeks later, I'd forgotten about the conversation, and Frank goes, "Hey, kid, follow me." And I go, "Oh, okay." Frank Crissetti says to follow him. I'll follow him. And as I'm following him, I look over at the Yankees dugout, and there's Joe DiMaggio. Wow. And Frank says, "Joe D, I want you to meet this kid. He's a good kid. I grew up with his grandfather. This kid is okay. And so then Joe DiMaggio motions me. I'm like, Joe DiMaggio motions me down with his hand to come down, and meet him. And at the same time that's happening, Kathy Jacobson, who was then one of the rare women in sports, was the head of public relations for the Oakland A's. A wonderful woman, very smart woman, a great credit to the A's. She did a great job as her public relations director. She happened to be by the third baseline, just taking in some of the pregame activities. So she walks over because she sees me with Joe DiMaggio, and she's within listening range, And as I'm shaking Joe DiMaggio's hand and getting ready to leave, Frank says, "Hey, kid, you still got that postcard? Joe could sign it for you." Now, on our credentials, as I'm sure you're aware, in bold font, in all black, is no autographs on the credentials.
Right.
Which means you cannot ask for an autograph of any player, period. And if you do, your credential can be confiscated. I saw that happen twice covering the Giants. I saw somebody that wasn't paying attention to the rules, tried to get an autograph on a ball, and their credential was taken like that, and off they went. They were never, they weren't had access anymore. So
wow. You had a decision to make. Is this worth it to me for Joe D or not?
Yeah. And so, I said to Frank, I don't think so. I don't think so, Mr. Crissetti. I don't think I have it with me. And I'm looking over at Kathy Jacobson, and she's giving me the death stare. And Joe's looking at me like, okay, what do you want me to do, kind of thing, and stuff. And Frank goes, "Oh no, sure you do, kid. You've got it. Check your, check your zippered case. He goes, I know it's in there." Oh man.
And
so
Kathy is glaring at
Kathy's
you.
death stare, yeah, and Frank goes, "Just give him the blanking card, and so I didn't want to insult Joe DiMaggio. I didn't want to tick off Kathy, and I didn't want to insult. Actually, I wanted to shut Frank up because he was just egging me on. So okay, fine. So I pulled the card out. Joe smiles, nods, pulls out a Sharpie, signs it for me. I shake his hand again. I say, "Thank you, sir. Thank you very much." And Frank goes, "Geez, kid, was it really that tough?" And so off goes Frank to go sit with Joe, and I'm retreating. And I'm trying to retreat quickly away from Kathy. But Kathy catches up to me, and she goes, "Craig, what's that say on your credential?" And I said,
Craig?
"Kathy, it says no autographs." She goes, "Right." And I said, "Kathy," I said, "if you want to take my credential, I totally understand it." And she said, "No, I'm not going to take it." She said, "I would like to see that postcard, though." So I showed her, and she goes, for Joe DiMaggio's signature, yeah, I guess it was worth it. She said, "But if I ever catch you doing that again, I said, "You will not catch me doing that, Kathy.
You won't catch me this time. I'll do it without you being around."
No, that's not what I meant. I honored the credential, but I know right now she is working. She has her own company, a public relations firm that helps professional athletes with marketing and with public speaking and all that. She's a great asset to women in sports, to women executives, and I will always have a fond memory of Kathy Jacobson. She just was an amazing woman at a time when there were very few women in sports marketing, in public relations. I really believe she was a trailblazer for women to come after in baseball and in the NFL and all sports.
Did you ever get to meet Sherry Davis? Speaking of women who are trailblazers.
Oh my gosh, help me with my memory there. What's
Sherry Davis
the name sounds familiar.
Was the first woman PA announcer in history. She's in the Hall of Fame.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And she competed for that job with yours truly one day at Candlestick Park, and she got it, and I didn't. But what the good news there is, in my podcasting endeavors, I got to meet her and tell her that story, and she's done several podcasts. And over the years, we've become very good friends, Sherry and I. So I'm almost glad she got the job that I wanted so very badly. And I didn't. And when I wrote a book, it's called Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar. And I wrote it with a fellow named George Grimm. Peter Golenbach and Mark Littell did the forwards, and
awesome.
and I'll send you a book, and maybe you can have me on your podcast someday.
You guarantee.
But Sherry is featured in my book, among a myriad of other people. So we've shared some great memories today.
I think didn't she take over for Jeffrey Bonds on the public address at Candlestick?
I don't remember who she took over for, but
yeah, she was doing that before I came on. Started covering the Giants. But yes, I remember her. And then Rennell Brooks, who does it now for the Giants. I mean, yeah.
Later on,
the Giants have got a great history of women playing a big part in with the team. Very, very proud of the Giants for that.
And one of the things the Giants have is a history of having terrific announcers. I mean, over the years, Hank Greenwald and Lonnie Simmons, and going back to Russ Hodges, who and you know who the third, when the Giants first came out to California, the third announcer in that booth, Russ Hodges was the only New Yorker who came out. Lon Simmons did it with him. And the third guy was King, Bill King. Third announcer.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Which started a terrific tradition, like I say. Ron Fairley was an announcer with the Giants, who was very underrated. And to say nothing of Krukow and Kipe and John Miller in present times. And the importance to a baseball fan of their favorite announcer cannot be duplicated. I mean, because you listen on the radio. I'm a radio guy more than a TV guy, but you listen to these people every day. They become your friend, and it's just a wonderful sport. I've had a good time today.
Me too.
In renewing memories. And let's do it again. Maybe we could have both you and your partner come on and do a podcast with me, and in turn I'll do a podcast with you two.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear your stories about, working with Topps and signing the players. And you should write a book about that too. That's very interesting.
There's a lot about it, and as a matter of fact, my lifetime friend from Topps, doing Topps, Mark Littell, did the forward to my book, and he was gracious enough to do that. My experiences were incredible. Not only that, they paid me money to do what I would have done for nothing.
Yep.
I would have done it for cab fare. How about that?
Yep, I feel the same way. I couldn't believe I was getting paid to do what I was doing. I mean, I was
right. You wake up every day, and that's why I mentioned Walter Mitty.
Yep.
I knew you'd like that.
Yeah.
Craig Allen Newton, great guest, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I really appreciate you being here, my friend.
I really enjoyed it. I really did.
Good. Music to my ears. Listen up, everybody. This was a good one. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The show is Lovin' Baseball When We Were 12 and Innocent. I will ask you the question that I always ask on this show to conclude it. What disappointed you most when your innocence was broken about baseball?
Oh, my gosh. That's a long story. When I was a kid, how much time do we have, seriously?
How much time do you need? How much time do you need?
Okay, this is a good story. When I was a kid, 12 years, like we mentioned, this is long before you go to a team's, club store and buy a jersey and all that. I took my dad's undershirt and I made a Giants jersey out of it with markers. And we played wiffle ball. We had serious wiffle ball games as a kid in my neighborhood. And so I made a jersey out of my dad's undershirt. My dad was okay with it. My mom, not so much. And pretty soon, other kids were asking me to make jerseys for them too after their dad's undershirts. But my biggest player that I followed on the American League was Vida Blue with the A's.
Right.
And I every single time I went to an A's game with my dad, we'd see Vida signing autographs. But by the time I got down there, because we were up in the third deck, by the time I got down there to where he was at, he was done signing. So I never got a chance to meet him or get an autograph or anything. Now, fast forward to I get a chance to now start doing some writing. Now, I'm not college educated in journalism. I took journalism in high school. So I wasn't aware of the do's and don'ts. No one was there to coach me through and say, you don't wear your Giants jacket on your first day with a credential down to the Giants clubhouse. I did. You don't say to a player that you were my favorite player. I did that to Vida Blue. I did. I made so many mistakes as a kid. A 26-year-old covering sports. Duffy Jennings, the public relations director at the time, just gave me a credential, gave me the instructions how to get down to the clubhouse. There's no one to walk me down there. There's no one to say, don't do this, don't do that. I made mistakes. I learned from those mistakes. When I got down to the clubhouse, the very first person I saw was Bob Melvin, who had just been called up. And now the great manager for the Padres, even better manager with the Oakland A's. But he was just a rookie kid when I saw him the first time.
With Spillner.
Anyhow.
Melvin and Spillner.
Yeah.
Remember that combination.
Yep.
And they came up together. And Melvin is a great manager.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's doing a great job. So I saw Vida Blue, and I started telling him all these wonderful memories I had of him and stuff, and I told him stuff that he didn't even remember about when he won the car, and he gave the car to his mom. He said, "You remember that story?" I said, "Yes, sir, I remember that story," and all that. About this time, here comes darn it, the equipment manager for the Giants.
Murphy.
Thank you, Mike Murphy. A beautiful, loving man, has done so much good for the youth taking youth that could have gone another direction and bringing them in the clubhouse and putting them to work and helping them, find their footing in life. I saw Murph earlier that day, and he said, "Oh, your first time here and stuff." And I said, "Yeah, stuff." And I said, "This is just so cool, it's just so really cool and stuff." And he said, "Would you like a ball?" And I'm like, "A ball?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have a team ball. I'll fish one out in the back for you and stuff." So I said, "Okay, sure, that'd be great." I didn't know the rules. No one told me.
Right.
So, so many mistakes I made. So embarrassing. So anyhow, I'm talking to Vita Blue, and then here comes Murph. Here you go. Here's that ball I promised you. Vita stops talking to me, watches me take the ball. Then he says, "Are you a writer or a fan?" He says, "Who am I talking to? Am I talking to a blanking writer or a blanking fan?" I said, "A writer." And he said, "Really?" Because the guy I'm talking to, this kid I'm talking to, he's wearing a Giants jacket. He just accepted a signed baseball. And yet he wants access to the clubhouse, to my home, to interview me? No. He said, "You need to make a decision, kid. If you're going to be a writer, take off the jacket, give back the ball. If you're a fan, leave the clubhouse, go into the stands. I'll be happy to sign a ball for you, whatever, sign a card for whatever and stuff. But we're on a fan-player basis. If you're a writer and you have access to my home, the clubhouse, you can't act like a fan. You're making a fool of yourself." Now, he said that in front of a bunch of people that are writers. I went so red, and I was so mad, and I left. And I was so mad. I was so mad, I took the jacket off, I threw it in the car, and I sat in the car, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so mad, I'm so embarrassed." And when I got out of the car, I gave the ball back to Murph, which really confused the heck out of him, poor Murph. But anyhow, and I did go back to the clubhouse. I went up in the press box and cut my mouth shut, and just watched the writers and learned, and watched and learned. And I avoided Vita Blue for a week, and then one day, it was early in the morning. He sees me, and he goes, "Good morning." I went, "Good morning," like that, stuff. And he says, "What?" And I said, "Good morning." And he goes, "Oh," and he starts showing. He says, "Are you pissed at me?" And I go, "No, I'm not." He goes, "Oh, blank, you are." "Yes, you are." He says, "Follow me." He takes me to the back, the area where the players eat their breakfast and stuff. There's no players were there, so just me and him. Sits me down at the table, and he goes, "You're mad at me. You just admit it. You're mad at me." He says, "I broke your little heart. I broke your little fandom heart, didn't I?" And I was like, I'm getting really mad again. And he goes, "Do you know why I did that?" I said, "No." He says, "I care about you." He says, "You asked me questions." He says, "Kid, you asked me questions that I haven't thought about in years. You gave me some really fun memories to think about. And then you screwed it up. You blanked it all up with getting the signed ball." He said, "Kid, you've got a talent. You ask great questions. You were able to connect immediately." He says, I think you've got a good future as a writer." He said, "I had to wake you up. And yeah, you got embarrassed, but you know what? If I didn't care about you, kid, I wouldn't have done it. I would have let you look like a fool to all the writers, and they would have talked about you, and they would talk to the players, and you would have had no respect, and you would have been a failure because you would have had no chance at talking to any players. But you passed the test. You got rid of the jacket. You gave back the ball. You're a writer, kid." He says, "We're never going to be friends, you and I. I'm a player. You're a writer. We're never going to be friends. So you got to kill that fandom. You understand?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I appreciate that." And after that, we hit it off just fine. But the fact that Vita Blue took the time to teach the 26-year-old kid how to be a professional as a writer, how to be a professional, how to carry oneself in a major league clubhouse. I will never forget that. I will always be grateful to Provida for doing that. He made me immediately a professional writer, and I will always be grateful for that.
Wow. You want to know what I admire most about Fighter Blue? He didn't give in to Charlie Finley and change his name to True Blue. That's what Charlie wanted to call him. And he didn't give in into that at all.
Nope.
He and I had the same dentist in Oakland for a lot of years, and I can't think of her name. Speaking of women who are successful, but we'd sit in the lobby every now and again, and waiting for the dentist was no thrill. And if I could get a smile out of Ida, I would. I have a recommendation for you. Get Kathy Jacobson as a guest on your podcast.
I'm trying. I really am. I know she's on LinkedIn, but it's hard. It's hard to get on her LinkedIn account. Doesn't allow you to leave messages, unfortunately. So, anybody out there, please, that can get hold of Kathy for me.
Well, she may be on Twitter. She may be on Twitter. So try to get with her there. And,
I'd love to have her as a guest because she just what an amazing woman.
Such an influence on your life, and that's what podcasting is about. Going back to those people and sharing memories and thanking them. It's cathartic to do that. Just like it's cathartic for me to go, thank you for a great day, Alan.
Thank you very much.
All right. That's it for me. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We'll see you when we do. Adios and happy trails, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. How'd it go?
Yeah. She's probably going to come home tomorrow. I talked to one of the doctors and said that what happens is normal. For it not to happen is abnormal. For her blood work to that. She still hasn't even tested. That's good. But the fact that the numbers dropped so low for 60 is not abnormal. So what about actually stuff? What am I looking for? She's dangerously low here. The reason why I thought something wrong was her high temperature. And they said that's what you need to take your temperature every day. And that's what you're going to do.
Beautiful.
I said, okay. I said, if you get back, that's a very much. I said, get her in the store.
Glad you checked that day. Incredibly great.
So let me know when you're going to get the lab. Work is due. We're going to check her blood tomorrow. But today, blood work is really good. The fungus in her mouth, that's